Hi, I am Redwood, the late moderator of the R Paragon subreddit, a community leader with Epic Games, and I was playing Paragon since version 27 and played all the way up to the end.
And I am Ruba. I was also a moderator on the Paragon subreddit, a member of Epic's community team, and I played for a very long time. I think I joined in one of the early online tests, and I played all the way through the life of Paragon, pretty much on and off, up until about a month before the end when I rage quit.
So we wanted to take some time to do a little bit of a discussion on the Death of Paragon after seeing multiple posts posted across the sub and a lot of speculation, and also talk about some of our information that we have from the community leader team.
Yeah, for a long time we've been here through the Death of Paragon. Everyone has understandably been very upset. A lot of people have given their thoughts on why they think the game died. We believe that a number of key discussion points have been left out, and we kind of want to give what we think, our side of the story. And as Redwood talked about, we do have a little bit more inside information that we think adds some context to the story to give, hopefully, a better overall picture.
So if you're interested, listen to us as we discuss about 6 different topics over a little bit over an hour. Feel free to pause as you need because it's pretty long. Let's jump into it. All right, so first, I want to talk about how Epic handled balance. So I'm just going to kick this off with just a few notes I have here. So some of the really bad balance changes that happened just took way too long to fix and really work through. Some examples of this is when V42 dropped. I think everyone was ultimately excited for the new card rework, but it came with a lot of downsides that, as they were discovered, were just completely busted and took forever to fix. Some examples of that, when we had the unstable cyborg meta, that just took too long to deal with, and I think a lot of the community obviously revolted, but also we lost a lot of players in that time because it just wasn't fun to play against, and their reaction to the balance was to be a little bit condescending. I like Cam Winston overall, but that wasn't the best move in Community Corner. Some other examples is that when V42 dropped, they started to really experiment with their balance, which without really telling the community. So for instance, their head of CompQA's name escapes me right now. He
Colin
said,
Fogel.
Colin Fogel, that was it. Yeah. Skizzen. He came on Community Corner and he talked about Feng Mao. And when V42 dropped, they gave Feng Mao the highest move speed, I think the most attack speed, really strong defense, and he had a short range dash and a slow. And after they nerfed him, because he was just completely overpowered and not fun to play against at all, he said, we wanted to see what happens if we gave one of the most mobile characters in the game also the highest move speed and attack speed, which unsurprisingly caused people to leave because no one wants to fucking play against that.
That's fun.
So fun when a fidget spinner just comes up to you and destroys you and then takes your tower in 2 seconds. Additionally, I think something that you kind of wanted to touch on was Wraith. So if you want to maybe give us an overview of the really good balance for Wraith.
Before he was buffed significantly, was you saw him sometimes, you saw him mid sometimes. I don't think he was a very good mid laner. You sometimes saw him in the carry role, but like his kit was very utility based. You saw him in competitive a lot. Like I know Toronto Mikey, he used to run a mean Wraith, and it'd be like there was matches where if Mikey got Wraith, they would win. Like he was that strong of a hero. He didn't do the most damage, but it was his stealth plays, his back it ups. Like it was really, really powerful. And then Epic looked at it and saw that Wraith was not being used in top level competitive play. Like he just wasn't being picked. No one was picking him. So Epic went.
You mean top level or do you mean bottom level?
Sorry, top level play.
Okay, got it.
So like you saw him kind of. Oh no, sorry. You would see him mostly in like you'd see him a lot in low level because people didn't really know what they were doing. Then you would not see him from probably like mid gold to probably up to MRR cap. You saw really few Wraiths, and then you would see them more in like masters, and occasionally, and usually it was when you had coordinated teams. I don't think many masters would pick Wraith if they weren't on comms or on a competitive team. If they were just solo, they probably wouldn't pick him. So Epic went, okay, let's buff his attack speed, buff his health per level, buff his damage per level, to the point where he was one of the strongest carries in terms of raw damage and had all this additional utility. And Epic, by their own judgment, their own admittance, was they did it just to see if people would start picking Wraith just by increasing his damage. And I think they buffed him significantly. I think it was V44, which was I think it was about September 2017 that they did it. And then right the way to the end of Paragon, Wraith was still a monster. And they did nothing to address it. Even the last patch where we were sat waiting for please nerf Wraith. And we're going through the patch notes and it's like Sparrow has been nerfed.
Well, yeah, that's how you deal with Wraith, is that you nerf a totally irrelevant character at that time.
Nerfed one of the Sparrow was okay. Sparrow was alright. It wasn't the worst carry, but Wraith was just still doing his stuff, still sniping and a third of people's health off at level 5. It just made absolutely no sense. And I get their idea, and I know that they wanted to try different things with Wraith to try and increase his pick rate at all levels of the game. But just adding on straight damage, go.
But yeah, just what's interesting about that is that they were willing to communicate hey, we're literally going to just give Wraith insane damage to see if people pick him in the lower tiers or just more in general. I remember there was a note about it in the patch notes, but when Colin Fogel comes on Community Corner and says, oh, we gave Fang Mao the highest attack speed, the highest move speed, and strong defense just to see what happens. When you don't know that was the experiment that's going on, you just think that they're terrible at balancing because you don't have a reference point like we did with Wraith.
I agree. I think the Feng Mao one was a bit more nefarious because they just kind of did it. Wraith, I'm fairly certain that we knew about it, why they did it. It was he's not getting picked at low level. We're going to do this to try and increase his pick rate at higher levels. Surprisingly, people started picking him and they started wrecking with him. Wraith was just ridiculous the last couple of months of Paragon. No, there was no workaround for him. But no one could handle it. And everyone knew about it. The competitive guys that I spoke to at the time were they need to either nerf all these cooldowns, nerf the range and back up. Back up was such a long range. And you could use it so aggressively as well. I think, yeah, there was just so much that were there. And Epic tried it on us. And yeah, they kind of learned their lesson and told us why. But I don't know. It felt like an experimentation when experimentation wasn't really required.
Yeah, and
go.
Something else about it, relating it back to how Epic handled balance, is that it was also just a really lazy buff. They're he's not getting picked in across the boards. We're just going to make him really, really strong. So strong that if you pick someone else, you're now putting your team at a disservice. What
they tried to do with some of the heroes at the end, so it took so long for some of the reworks to go through, so long. Iggy was nearly 8 months. Steel, even the Richters, and just some of the smaller changes were taking so long. It felt like they were just trying to tweak numbers to try and fix broken kits, when ultimately it wasn't the numbers that you were doing. It was ultimately either the way that the kit worked or other elements, the cadence and the delivery of the reworked heroes. I know there was probably about 6 or 7 others that were due to get reworked. I just felt like this was their way of trying to fix problems in a manner that they could do relatively quickly with very little investment into doing so.
Yeah, no, totally agree on that one. And in our community leader discussions, I think some of that really came through with how they were discussing and handling balance. So just a last note that I want to jump on with poor balancing issues and, even the community recognizing when something's going to be bad, is that when something is overpowered or a bad balance issue, because Epic decided to go with the decision of every hero is free to play, there's nothing stopping someone from just spamming that hero and winning games. You would see the same overpowered heroes in every single game until the issue is addressed. For example, when Grux had DC Grux and it took, a month or more to fix that issue, every single game had DC Grux because everyone could play him and there was no barrier to keep people from abusing that system. Whereas in other games like League or Heroes of the Storm, where you have to buy heroes, when someone's really overpowered and you don't have the hero, there's a monetary barrier keeping you from abusing that. So you don't just, it's just not in your face as much.
Yeah, so specifically, I remember when when in the
Yeah, Wukong.
V43, fucking Wukong every single match. It's like
Oh,
like
Jesus.
what role are you playing with Wukong? Oh no, like what lane, like Wukong. All right, okay. But then like the V43 meta, which was the unstable cyborg, growth tome, unbroken spirit cyborg like meta, where you just ran those 3 cards, whether you were Kwong, Grux, Chimera, Feng Mao, like whatever,
Twin
you just ran those
Blast.
3. Twin Blast. Did you run Twin Blast? Yeah, you did. Yeah, like when Unstable Cyborg first came out, it had what, double, like something like double an auto attack range. And
It
you
was
would
double auto attack, and it did, I think, 200 damage per proc
fucking
in an
crazy.
AoE
Like,
around you.
and
Like, who thought that was a good idea?
it's like, so I'm gonna run as a tank and I've got unstable. And then if the enemy team want to focus me, they're gonna kill their own team, like just crazy. But just how long it took to fix it was just, and like, yeah, Paragon system with the cards, like, so I think fundamentally having cards open and available to everyone from day one is the best thing to do. I don't like gating cards. I especially don't like paying for things like cards. But in situations like that where everything's open to everyone, like I remember matches where it's like we look at the scoreboard and it'd be like, oh, we're going to win this because we've got 5 growth totems and 5 unstable cyborgs, and they've only got 3. Like crazy niche stuff coming out like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and because they had the, if they wanted to do a server-side change, it had to go through approval of PlayStation, and so it just wasn't fast.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to be fast, it cost a lot of money, so they didn't want to do it because Paragon was already a money sink. So it just caused these issues take so long. But I think we've already covered off on that pretty well.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump us into the next topic?
Yeah, so I think probably one of the biggest things for me was the new Dawn update, which was the new card system, the new attributes. Lots of things changed, and I know from speaking to a lot of people who are involved in the V42 PTR, how just like it was just bad from day one. So V42 brought us the new Dawn card system. So the old CP system was gone. Instead of using card points to buy cards, you would spend gold into attributes for the most part. You would then buy cards out of those attributes and so on, and like that's how it worked. For me, fundamentally, I think deep down that the attribute system and the card system was a really good idea. Like a really good idea. It's much easier for people to understand.
I agree with that.
Like I think there was probably a number of different ways to solve the problem that the 60 CP card system brought. Like I remember, right? And then people are like, oh yeah, it was fun having to count 60. No, fuck, it wasn't, right? It was fucking obnoxious. So I think that their design philosophy for the new card system was fantastic. Like it was a really good way of handling, you put 4 points in this, and you go buy this card. Like it worked, and they're like focusing on the abilities. It was a much cleaner system. Ultimately, though, I think that their implementation of it was terrible.
Yeah,
and it just led to so many bad things happening within the game. Like when they were first talking, like, so when I first spoke to someone who was in the PTR about attribute systems, and they were kind of explaining how the point system worked, they made it sound amazing. So it's like, okay, so you're a carry, so you build points in agility that increases your power, and it increases your basic armor and increases your basic damage, and then you get some other cool things, and then it unlocks gems like lifesteal, and I'm like, all right, this sounds really good. And then you get into game and it's like, I can't even remember the values. Like they were so inconsequential. Like putting 1 point in agility did almost nothing.
You didn't really feel like you were getting that much stronger until the game was already decided.
No, I felt like you got almost no benefit. Like there was a couple of break points, like, and until you got the cards and like added the cards in, like attributes was just a different way of buying cards. Like it didn't really add any additional flavor. Like, well, I'll get to gems and some of the cards specifically in a minute, but just the way the system was, like, it didn't feel rewarding. And Cam Wins was there, like, going, "You should never feel like you hit your maximum build." Like, I feel shit. I think that was the big one.
Are you like? I think one of the other issues is that they're just, I think you sort of hinted at it, but there weren't really enough options, so cards, to really make that feeling diverse. right?
No, like, so I like going back to philosophy of design. So when they changed the system for affinities from two per hero to, you just pick what you want. If you want to go order and chaos as a support and get things like Outlander, Scout, and wards, go do it. Okay, cool. If you want to be a jungler and go for growth, and then I don't know, maybe intellect and get a blink, cool, go for it. But in reality, like, there was some options, and like I think towards the end you started to see some builds come out, but it didn't feel like you had a real choice. And there wasn't enough cards. Like, definitely, I think that's one of the biggest problems with the card system. There just was not enough cards. Like, I remember building decks, and they'd be like starter cards, mid game cards, maybe a couple of options. I would build decks of like 9 cards and be sat there going, I don't need anything else. Like, I might throw in like an additional card. Like, there was no real risk reward, or I think it's been a problem throughout Epic's time. Like, I understand that there will always be a meta when we're like building card system. Like, there'll always be a meta for the best way to build, but it just never felt like a choice. It felt really dull, and some of that was the cards, some of that was the way the cards were balanced, but it just didn't feel like what they intended and what their mission statement was, and that there's going to be all this choice, all these options, lots of different viable, available options for any player, regardless of how you want to play. It never really felt like that at any point in the game.
Yeah, and I think that really stood out, especially in the mage role. They're like, oh, we have all these really unique options, and they're amp engineer or they're amp engineer. Then you can equip anything else because it doesn't matter, because you can do tons of damage. And it was a no-brainer pick, so it was just so strong. And so I think a lot of that ties back to how they handled balance, where just when things were super strong, like there's no risk to using them, or any reason to experiment with anything else.
I agree. Amp Engineer was a great example of the card system. Then putting in a card became super viable. They changed the numbers. Like, Christ, I remember for a while when Amp Engineer was broken, and that it used to do its 12% when it was broken.
Yeah, 12%. It started out at 8%. No one used it. They buffed it to 12%. People started using it, and then it was just gross.
Yeah, but I used to work in things like Raptors, Prime. So you would go in as a Fae, dump your 4/5 abilities, and you would just like take 50% of Prime's health off. Like, things like that were just super broken. Thanks, Epic. But like, it was just all these examples of Epic just totally just cards that were neglected for so long. Grinning Spectre, I felt, was a really cool idea for a card with this execute, and you had to run away from it, but it was just like people just didn't pick it because it just wasn't viable. I'm going to go against some people and say that I think using data to drive a lot of decisions is a very good data point. Like, it's a great input to use.
That's my whole job, so I agree with that as well.
It's like, it shouldn't be your only input. Like, you still want to use anecdotal evidence to make sure like things balance with the data and that things match, and you don't get like 16% of matches have an unstable cyborg bullshit, wherever it was. Like, okay, because fucking all 4 people in the enemy team have unstable cyborg, and all 5 people in my team have unstable cyborg. But using data and going, right, no one's picking this card, right? What was the card? Static Trap. That was a card that was brought in, and no one used it. And then they buffed it, and no one used it. And then they buffed it again, and then people would like make some cheeky plays, and like you saw some Reddit posts where like people were sticking traps everywhere, but it was still a useless card. And again, it was like data was running on it. Like, and I know that Epic said like, we're just going to buff this card and keep buffing it until people start picking it, and then we're gonna rain backwards on it once people have the incentive to use it. I don't think that's a very healthy way when there's so many glaring obvious problems with certain cards, and you can tell like that whole unstable cyborg problem. The fact that Epic sat there and said it's not a problem and we've used data, I was like, are you guys playing your own game?
I get the feeling that they weren't playing the live game as much as they should have been. I think they were playing a lot of internal tests, where when you're doing an internal test, you all decide what you're going to test out, as opposed to it's a live game where everyone's going to pick what's super broken so they can win.
It's kind of like, I know we've talked about this for a bit, but wrapping up this, so card system, the attribute system, I think it was great. Again, I think there was different ways of fixing the problems that the new Dawn was trying to bring in. it just felt like this system that was really, really well thought out. They put lots of attention into the design philosophies and the background, and then when they got to the implementation of it, they just fucked shit up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it falls under the umbrella of it was half-baked, creating aura cards without removing aura stacking first, creating AoE cards that damage the environment, such as Raptors and Orb Prime. Just all that stuff really wasn't properly thought through.
You touched on it slightly, but aura stacking was one of these things. Let's give Withering Shadow a card, really, really powerful AoE damage tech. And then, okay, that's fine. It's like, yeah, so it's like you can go like Aurora, like perfect card for Aurora, right? She has no wave clear. She's very much team fight orientated. So you can build a card in Aurora that gives her this kind of split push wave clear that, Greystone's kit's better for, Kalaris kit's better for. Like it gives you some way of controlling how your heroes work. And then it's like, did no one actually ever fucking think that 5 heroes wouldn't get this card and you would get 5 times the damage? Like, you're not going to see that all the time. But surely someone in the room put their hand up and said, what happens if 2 Withering Shadows are on 2 heroes next to another hero? Like, are they both going to tick? I just felt like the time and effort to ask simple questions just didn't go into it.
Yeah, I'm actually going to quote a interview I read with the creators of XCOM 2, the company of Firaxis. And in the interview, they created this big new expansion pack called the War of the Chosen. We're not going to talk about it, but something super OP that you can use with a combo of characters that just makes the game trivial. And in the interview, they asked about it, and I think game designer said that they thought about it, they discussed it internally, and they said, well, we don't think the community is going to use it because that wouldn't be very fun. It'd be too easy. So I wonder if they sort of looked at it the same mindset, like, well, it's not very fun to have 5 Withering Shadows, so they probably won't use it, and just moved on.
I don't know. I remember when we used to run more than 3 Withering Shadows and we'd pick one person.
Dude, Withering Shadow Muriel, fucking OP, dude.
You just giggle. I just look at his health. So I get XCOM and I get how at the moment I'm playing BattleTech, and it's very, very, very similar to the way XCOM works in the whole system. And we're also playing Vermintide, and they're both games where there's very much an onus on focusing on the game being difficult. Like, that's where the fun comes from. And I get, like, in those scenarios where you're like, yeah, it's kind of cheesy and it's not really fun, so people won't use it. Like, I get that. In a competitive game like Paragon, where you have those options available, like the whole idea of Paragon and the card system and hero mastery is coming up with a meta way of playing strategically and tactically that allows you to defeat your opponents. And if you have some way of making that easier or simpler, people are going to use it and exploit it.
Totally. Yeah, that competitive environment does not, you don't sit back and go, well, that wouldn't be fun. You just exploit it so you can get those wins. So you can get that elo rise on Agora.gg, baby.
Exactly. Speaking of unfun, we segue nicely into fucking gems.
Oh my God.
Gems. Right. Epic. So I like the idea, right? Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk when the New Dawn was first being talked about. KL on one of the community corners talked very, very clearly about, so V41 and before, you had 6 cards. And when the new system was launched, we had 3 cards. Now, people were like, oh my God. What the fuck you doing, Epic? Like, I'm going from 6 cards and I have to make intelligent choices about them to 3 cards. So you're taking away my choice. And then if you were like, it's cool, fam. Literally, I think that's what he said.
Fam.
Was instead of having 3 cards, no, not us. We're going to give you 6 gems, and these gems are going to be all kind of unique and powerful, and they're going to really change up the way that you build your hero. So instead of having 6 options, you're going to have 9. Cool. Like, I was really stoked. I like the idea of building attributes and having these weird split builds, and it made more sense for certain heroes. Totally cool. And then we got some of the gem choices, like wealthy. Now, I remember Wealthy. So for anyone who don't remember, so Wealthy was a tier 2 agility gem. It was a 7-point gem, and it used to give you 5% increased gold. And then in the same tier, you also had Ruthless, which gave you additional damage against targets. And then you had Fast Travel. So out of combat, you got this permanent movement speed. That was probably the tier that I felt was like the best epitome of just really, really bad choices.
Do you know it gives you a lot more gold than 5%? Killing the enemy.
Killing a minion. Like I think it was down to over the course of matches, people were talking about you get an extra wave. That's Wealthy paid for. Like just the gem system in general, like it made sense in theory, and like you get these chests, and there was some really good choices. Like I'm not saying that gems entirely were completely garbage. Like that's like, do you want to take Mana Fountain, or are you going to make a bad choice today? Like just like same thing, same with Spell Shield. Like,
Spellburn Greystone OP, dude. I still stand by that to this day.
But then that was like niche things. Like, oh, I'm sure someone then, oh yeah, we'll put in Spellburn. It'd be really good on spells because there's like just garbage damage. Spell Shield was just so strong. What else? Avenging Spells was terrible. Like there was just so many bad choices, and the system just didn't feel rewarding. Like I remember most of my casters, there was very little choice. Junglers maybe, but that was more in terms of kit. And no one liked gems. Like there was so little discussion, so little meta play. It didn't feel like I didn't feel like I had 6 additional choices when I was going in. Like I used to be a big fan of theory crafting and building decks in the old system. And I could probably walk you through my old Decker deck. Like I probably played Deckers exclusively for the best part of 4 months, and I could walk you through my deck bit by bit, and it was like designed specifically for certain things. And I had different options, and I've had a different type of carry. Like there was so much choice given to me, and then it got just replaced with this just garbage system where there was arbitrary choices, like three poor choices with one's always the winner, compared to actually making a choice is just a terrible design philosophy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think discussing how they could fix it is kind of null at this point, but I remember I would read guides and I wouldn't even read the gem section because it was like, I already know what gems I should throw on this hero.
So I think this was, in terms of the systems itself, so in New Dawn, there's a couple of problems. So we touched on there's not enough cards. Like I think that was one of the biggest problems. We needed probably double the cards, and there needed to be more choice, and there needed to be more options, and just more for people to do. Counterplay was a big one as well. Like if you're against a team with casters, you take Unbroken Spirit. But you're always going to go at least 2 heroes on that enemy team that have spells. So why would you ever not take Unbroken Spirit in your deck? Never mind equip it. So yeah, so like just wrapping up, we talked about this for a bit. Card system, tribute system, I think was a great philosophy and a great way of thinking about how to change the deck up. But the implementation, the way that Epic delivered it was just a terrible experience for new and experienced players. It took a lot out of the game in terms of theory crafting, which I know a lot of people were in for.
I think we've covered this update pretty good as to why
New Dawn fucked up a lot of stuff. Just
killed the player base. I mean, no one wants to sign in to play a game where everything's the same every single game and the idea is good, but the implementation is bad. Do you know what else isn't fun?
How long do we have? Getting 1v3 by a Kwong running Unstable Cyborg.
Yes, also not fun, but the least fun is when the game looks so good that it bricks your PS4. Art update, baby.
What was that? V40?
I think it was V44?
43?
Art update drop. So, okay, I've got like a pretty high-end PC, and it ran totally fine for me. And I remember I was like, you know what? I want to play this on the big screen in my living room because this new art update looks incredible. And I turned on my PS4 and it overheated and crashed. And I think a significant amount of the Paragon player base was PS4 players. A little bit more casual, want to play in the living room with their buds. And when you just can't turn on the game or it crashes on you like midway through the game because it's unoptimized, it's just not a good experience. And that would happen for so long. I think the optimization update took like a month after the art update came out, that it just was killer for the entire PS4 player base.
So I remember. So I used to play we used to play with lots of people who were PS4, and I remember at the start. So PC players couldn't see who was on PS4, but PS4 players could see everyone, like what platform they were on, and we do a quick stock check at the start of the match and see how many PS4 players were on either side. Guaranteed, at least one of the PS4 players would have a disconnect within the first couple of minutes, and it would, for the vast majority of games, dictate who won the match purely based on who crashed out first.
Yeah, I remember there were times where I would ask our PS4 friends to tell me how many PS4 players were on the enemy team, and if they had more PS4 players, I just knew we were going to win. And the majority of times, that's exactly what happened, because 1 to 2 of them would just get kicked out because their system would brick, or like, that's not the right phrase, but it would crash, and it would take them like 7 minutes to get back into the game.
And like with a AFK that long, they were coming back to an AFK penalty. So that person coming back was getting no rewards, no quest updates, star bullshit, whatever they were going to get, no chest. Like, you crash in the PS4 and hard crash, right? So you have to turn the PS4 on, let PS4 bullshit warm up, log back into PSN network, go back into the game. You are guaranteed a dodge penalty.
Yeah, and when that's happening, like 1 out of 3 games to you, realistically, that's unplayable. Because like, you don't know if you're going to actually be able to get through a whole game, and you're just going to be frustrated when video games are supposed to be fun. So
I agree, and I think 1 in 3s for some people I knew of that were playing, like 1 in 3 was like they would take 1 in 3 in a heartbeat based on how many times they were crashing.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that also just kind of follows along with the overall theme of inconsistent QA. Just it looked great, incredibly done art team knocked out of the park, but the actual team bringing it to market really dropped the ball in making it optimized and playable. And even after the optimization patch, I remember it still had a lot of issues with crashing and stuttering for PS4 players.
So if I'm recalling right, there was 2 patches. So there was one patch that was like a month after that was like, this is like, so dial it back a bit, right? We're going, right? We'll go back to V42 when New Dawn launched. Now, New Dawn was supposed to launch with a new card system and the new gems and all that. Garbage, right? That was supposed to launch with the map update at the same time, right? That was Epic's plan. Map wasn't ready, wasn't optimized, so they delayed it by 6 weeks. And then we got V43, which was called Monolith Rising. So it was already 6 weeks delayed, and it was still a mess. Then 6 weeks after, we got another like big stability patch, and for a lot of people, it didn't fix dog shit. Like, nothing got fixed as a result of that patch. And then it wasn't until V45, which was like the Terra big patch at the end of the year, when people started seeing performance coming back and the game starting to get playable. High-end PC users like 1080 Ti, big boy graphics cards, they were able to go back up to highs and stuff. Like, it was just such a huge problem, like crashes and disconnects.
Which makes me really curious, like what state that game was in when they had to delay the map update. Like, it must have been really bad before, they were planning on releasing it with the New Dawn. And if it was that bad a month out after this air quote made it better, it must have been just garbage. Imagine if they had pushed that through.
I agree. I get PC player base and like having like all these different platforms and different systems, and you've got this graphics card and this processor and this blah blah, like all the different permutations you can have for PC player base and how difficult it is to test all that. But you have like 8 versions of PS4 in various stages. I'd imagine Epic have at least one or not multiple versions of the PS4 in their office. They have pros, they have all this stuff. They run bake tests. I know that they used to run the game in a test mode for like 4 or 5 days on a PS4 to test frame rates and all that kind of stuff, to then release an update so bad for PS4 users. Like, I just don't get how that kind of shit can get through QA.
I have an idea. It's when you grab the majority of your QA team and you say, yo, you got to start QAing Fortnite Battle Royale because it's raking in the cash. And then like 3 dudes left over in a room have to QA all of Paragon. That's it. That's not real. That's not what happened. But I'm assuming that's what happened.
I don't know, man. I don't know that was the case or not. Like, their balance team just seemed to shit the bed, like, massively. Like, there was problems before the last year. I don't know. Their system guys just, that fucking art update just, It looked amazing. And I remember when you're first playing it, you're like, oh my god, look at like this, look at the river, look at the rocks, look at this. Oh my god.
Oh, I
look at the
loved
big
it on
orb.
my computer.
And then you're like, okay, great. And then it's like, fucking disconnects. Oh look, he's gone. Never mind. That person's not coming back. I've won my lane. Like just such a bad experience for players. Like so many people, I remember at the time, just like I'm not going to play Paragon anymore because it's just no fun getting disconnected all the time and having to sit 7 minutes wondering what the fuck's happening to my tower.
And getting a penalty because of it.
Oh yeah, and then getting no rewards after it. You know, playing a 45-minute or 30-minute match, and then like, good job, you get fuck all, you get banned. Don't do it again. We're gonna ban you even longer.
Just terrible. Oh man. Yeah, well, I think that was one of the shorter topics I wanted to cover off on, but just another cause to really get the player base to dwindle after September. Do you think something else happened in September that you would like to talk about?
Is that segue expertly drafted? So
yeah, was that a spicy segue?
I said backspace. So I think I think it's very good for us at this point to take a quick stop check, right? So 2017, Epic. Now I'm going to say this: both Epic and the player base by Agora GG was growing. Now Epic said it, and I know people will be like, "Oh my god, can't believe anything Epic say." Right? Okay, fair enough. Agora GG and the other metrics we had available, like the subreddit, and looking at traffic numbers, was growing. The game itself was growing based on Agora. Based on any data available, the game was growing up until September 2017. Now, our update came out around about that time. All the other patches, New Dawn, all that stuff came out leading up to that. New Dawn was August. Our update was end of September. There's a couple of other things that I think probably helped to move the player base along. Probably the biggest one was Destiny 2. Particularly on PC. So I know myself, I took 4 or 5 weeks out of playing Paragon, other than maybe a couple of matches a week. Just like, and that was more like a social thing. Like I was like, people were like, come play Paragon. I'm like, fine. It wasn't like I wonder what's happening in Paragon. That was a big thing for me, was let's go play Destiny. It was new to PC for the first time. I did play it in console, and the idea of playing Destiny on PC with other people and like all the benefits of shooter mechanics and mouse and keyboard was, it was really a fucking Bungie shit the bed as well there. But at the time when it was just new and fresh out, I remember seeing my entire friend list in Discord just playing Destiny. Having like being able to disconnect from Paragon, go play Destiny. A couple of other games came out that month, but I think Destiny was the big one. Just pulled so many people out. And then the month after that, Fortnite Battle Royale started kicking off. And I think, like, while Paragon had all its problems and like a really unhappy player base, it wasn't an unfun game to play. Having these other really attractive options come into view sight of players just did so much in terms of their player retention count and their active player base. Just it was like just one problem added on top of the other.
Totally. And I remember specifically from my standpoint, Divinity Original Sin 2 came out, which is like, I love that game. And during that time frame is when Paragon was like, people were crashing and there's all this terrible balance. And so I just remember playing Divinity and being like, oh my god, I'm playing a video game and I'm just having fun and relaxing, and I'm not getting like super stressed out and annoyed because, you know, there's a Fang Mao that's a fidget spinner cutting through my entire team, or you know, it was like refreshing to go and play something else when there was all these issues. And I think that level of refreshment for parts of the community just made them go, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going back.
Yeah, and I think so. I know at Paragon there wasn't a lot of updates for Paragon in the last full proper year, 2017. A couple, you know, we had the monolith and we had the new monolith and we had jungle updates and Amberlink went, and like there was small changes.
Yo, Fangtooth, don't discount how big Fangtooth was.
Kill Fangtooth. Yeah, the Raptors. Oh my god. But like there was so much hype and so much investment and time built into some of these bigger updates. And it's just like people were at the point where it's like, so I know like for a lot of time I gave Epic a lot of slack. They were experimenting, which I think is a very good thing for a company to do. They were trying things that other MOBA developers and other companies hadn't done before. You know, like trying like proper 3D MOBA. Like if you've played Smite or if any of the people listening to this have played Smite before, you know it's not Paragon, and it's different, and you know it's a very different game. Epic were doing a lot of new stuff and trying a lot of new things. I gave them slack, and I'd probably say that I'm not a white knight, like, but that point, September, after those 2 big updates, I just had enough of Epic shit. Like, I don't, like, my loyalty and my patience with them was just not being rewarded at all. I didn't believe anything new was gonna fix it.
I had the exact same thing. I think I gave them more slack than was probably reasonable up until the state of the game at the end of 2017, where they pretty much were like, yeah, the game's we're gonna keep making it, and that's pretty much it. If you don't like it, get a refund. But whatever, bye. I don't know. Like, once I read that, I was done.
So I think so. We're sticking with that. So we've had these kind of September big updates. Epic publicly came out and said, you know what, guys? We're going to slow down a little bit. We're going to cam our jets. We're going to chill. We're going to stop doing every 3 weeks. I think Drongo was the last, maybe Drongo was the last every 3 weeks hero. Might have been Zinx. I don't know. One of the two. That was the last of the every 3 weeks heroes. And Epic said, we're going to take some more time. We're going to stop releasing new heroes because we want to do some reworks for older heroes. I know Steel was mentioned. Gideon was talked about. These heroes, they wanted to go back and they wanted to rework their kits and, you know, do something different. So we stopped getting the every 3 week hero in the content updates, kind of end of V44 end of September, going into October. I don't know about you, Red, but I definitely felt that change and the lack of the everything when every 3 weeks went, Paragon lost a lot.
I totally agree. I remember, just for me specifically, like, every 3 weeks was a really fun way to stay engaged with the game because every 3 weeks something new and exciting was coming out. I remember when I first downloaded Paragon, I think it was the Fae was the one that was coming out, and it was cool getting the teasers and seeing the whole community trying to guess like what you're gonna be. I think my favorite one was, you know, when Shinbi was a tease and everyone's like, oh, it's a male elf druid. No, it's a K-pop star in booty shorts.
I remember that. That was so funny.
But even all that stuff did a lot for the community to sort of stay engaged and keep moving with the game just to see that it's still progressing. Like you said, when they stopped doing every 3 weeks, it was sort of the first signal of like there's just not going to be as much content going forward, and it's going to be a lot less exciting.
I agree. So I don't know. So I think every 3 weeks was a lot. I know that the community tended to, like, every 3 weeks was probably not enough time for everyone to fully adapt to this new hero, but it was enough to be refreshing. Like, it was almost like a continuous cycle. So you'd have a new hero released on a Tuesday. People would have like a week or so to test them out. Towards the end of the week after, you maybe get a teaser for the next hero, or we start talking about it. Then a week after, you start getting the teaser, and then you get the trailer, and then you'd have to wait for the next hero and the community corners, and it was like there was always something going on, whether the hero was released or you were looking back at the new hero or waiting for the next hero. And then with the patches as well, like every 3 weeks also meant that we were getting significant balance patches. Unlike the 6 week kind of cadence. I know they did like the mid patches, but it'd be like every 3 weeks you'd get a balance patch. Some changes, like you get something else on top of the new hero, and then you get the new hero as well, and everything that kind of went along with that, the new skins and the mastery and all that kind of stuff. I think that was a big draw for people to stay engaged with the Paragon community.
Definitely. And also, I think something that exacerbated that issue with the lack of content is that when they said, you know what, we're going to slow things down and we're going to release a little bit less content and a little more infrequent updates, but they're still going to be quality, good updates. Every single update after that announcement was delayed, some of them by major timeframes, which just gets really, really frustrating as a consumer. You know, you going from every 3 weeks where things are coming on time and you're getting new, exciting content to now a really dialed back content schedule and cadence that is just getting delayed consistently. Like, I understand developing a video game is hard, but it's really aggravating as a consumer when not a single week goes by without the update coming out on time, when either you've taken off work or you've set aside some time to check it out, to check out the product that they've created, and they're not even in the room with you. So I think that was also a big part that sunk in the community.
Yeah, I think the loss of faith in Epic with that. Like, there was a point where I just did see an update was coming out. I was at the point where I was amazed if it did. And when you start to lose faith in Epic like that, and they start to see other things, it just adds up to just general lack of faith. Like, it was bad. Going in towards the end of the year before Terra was dropped, like, people were just really fed up with Epic. And, some people were like, okay, they're taking their time. There's lots going on. The game's getting buggy. Epic are obviously trying to do more than they're capable of. They're trying to run too fast. They've realized that. They've recognized that. And so they're taking some time to kind of slow things down. People were fine with that. But then when the other promises and other things started, just this general discontent developed in the community.
Tara's a funny example because I remember even her release video, like the 1 minute trailer for her character, was delayed by like a day, and the community just lost their mind because they're just so done with it.
I remember we're waiting for the Terra video, and then Chris Atlas was like on the stream, the Play with Community stream, like, yeah, it's coming 10 a.m., blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, oh, maybe 10 a.m., it's coming this day. And then we sat there waiting all day. I was working, like checking like Reddit every now and then, checking it, and it was nothing all day. And then a fucking day late for a video.
For just a 1 minute trailer that you would think was finished days before.
Yeah, and I think for anyone who doesn't know, the whole reason behind that was one of the translation strings was wrong. That they sent out to their community of translators. One of the abilities or something was wrong, or one of the skin things. One of the translated lines was wrong, and they didn't realize until very near the end when it was launching. So not only did they have to fix the line in the video, the English video, they had to then go out to their vendors and get new translations done. But when you're working that close to the wire and getting stuff put out, you have to wonder how much time Epic actually had to push stuff out and make changes like that.
It almost seems like it was some sort of inconsistent QA issue.
Like, I just, it's like everything getting done last minute. If you're working with that, like, I know previously in Epic's, like, the Paragon life cycle, they had like 3 or 4 heroes mostly done in the bag, sat kind of waiting, and they were kind of not properly balanced, not like properly but they were mostly there. And it just felt like the delay for Terra and Boris, whenever we were going to get Boris, like, just all these things, just like Epic just weren't able to deliver on dates for whatever reason.
Well, I mean, I think the reason itself is fairly clear in that the company was taking a different direction in their priorities. I think initially Paragon was supposed to be the big success, and then they were going to prop up Fortnite afterwards, and they found a game mode that really allowed them to have that success with half as much work. And so it was like, well, we can dump all of our time and effort into Paragon, literally trying to dig it out of its own grave, or we just sort of keep things on low power, running devless for a little while, or low dev, until we can figure it out.
Yeah, I know. We intentionally just didn't want to talk about Fortnite because, I think, well, I'm going to piss off people. I think saying Fortnite was the death of Paragon is an easy way out.
I think it's lazy.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying it didn't. Neither me or Red are saying that it didn't contribute to the death of Paragon, but I think Paragon had a lot wrong before it, and that Fortnite was just like this either catalyst for the death or it did something else. But you could definitely feel less attention and less effort was going into Paragon leading up into kind of the Winterfest update and stuff. I really liked Winterfest. I thought that was a really great update, and it was good to see so much content and effort and attention put into the game, and like the new leveling up chess system. Like, there was a lot went in there, but we were looking through. Me and Red were doing the preparation for this video, and we're going through all the old patch notes and looking at how infrequent those updates became towards the end was jarring to see the dates in the patch notes.
Yeah, how infrequent and skeletal. Like, when they were coming out, I didn't really notice, but when you really look back, I think even going from V40 forward, the patch notes just become a little anemic, and then very anemic.
And I think that was kind of the case. So we talked about Terra briefly. but then that kind of took us up to kind of end of the year. We had Winterfest, and then I suppose if we're kind of focusing on the Death of Paragon, probably there's a big revelation that kind of kicked out from the community. You want to talk about Red?
Are you talking about Russia's involvement with the presidential election? Or are you talking about Russia's involvement with the Death of Paragon? I'm making a joke. I'm sorry. That's terrible. Anyways, there was a leak that air quotes came from a Russian dev for Paragon where they were planning on shutting down the game in February. There was a leak that came out from Imsco, who's one of the more, influential community members, and he leaked that a Russian Paragon developer told him that it was going to be cut off in February. So this caused a lot of issues. One, the community went into a total fervor, as they do, and two, it really forced Epic to make a decision. What's interesting is that there are no Russian developers of Epic, so that was a lie, obviously, to cover someone else. And that person who leaked the information gave him incorrect information. He gave him information that was supposed to be they were discussing what to do with Paragon in February, but it was incorrectly said as they're shutting it down in February. So because the player base was in a complete fervor, people were calling in for refunds constantly, all of these issues, it forced their hand to just say, you know what, we're just calling it. We're done here. We're going to shut the game down in April and move on. Because after they lost out on that and all the refunds came through, there was just no saving it.
Yeah, so I know that we don't want to go into specifics about the leak and stuff because I know a lot of people know what happened. And part of the problem that Epic were faced with is, so they had this leak and they kind of knew it was true because the way that the leak happened was that a lot of people had evidence about how the leak happened and all stuff. We're not going into specifics, but Epic had to take a stance, and that was refunds. And I know there was a big post about the roadmap, and I know internally within the community leader team, there was talk about Epic were planning to make a stance change with Paragon and be much clearer about what their direction was, the resources and the speed of Paragon. Like Epic were mature and realistic in terms of what Fortnite was doing to their development team. So they were going through like a period of evaluation, taking a step back, figuring out what they were going to do with Paragon, and then this leak came out and it was kind of half true and people kind of know. So Epic were kind of forced to make this big point in terms of offering refunds. Now, I know that a lot of money went out. We were talking the other day about, the kind of people like saying, "Oh, I'm getting $1,000 back," or "I'm getting $1,500 back." I remember from like the small, people that I was talking to on a regular basis, I was counting up every time they said how much money they were going back. There was like $45,000 from like 15, 20 people that I knew. And granted, that's like people like B Certified who managed to pull back nearly $3,000 and all the boosts he did when he was doing the hero races. But that was a lot of money. And I can imagine that if Epic are already in a point where they're really doubting the future and the economic viability of a game like Paragon, when at this point, January time when they were, getting ready to make the decision about Paragon, Fortnite made $90 million in a month in December, which is probably more than Paragon ever. I like no danger did Paragon make that money. And it's probably more money than Fortnite and Paragon took to develop in the first place. They made it back in a month. So I can imagine with all this doubt going from the community, so everything leading up over that year, community just totally disenchanted, disillusioned with the way the game's going. They're then starting to take money out of the game. So the game's barely making money. Then all this money's coming back out. And the game's still kind of fucking broken. Like, I can see why just so much was going on at that time that was negative.
Yeah, and there was a really interesting side quote that I had heard that I can't directly confirm, but if they thought that if they shut the game down, they could fix it in 6 months and come back, but they couldn't do that. Yeah, they couldn't do that because the community would lose their mind and they would lose all sort of trust with them by turning off the game for such a long time. So it comes down to if they want to fix the game, it's going to require a serious amount of time, a serious amount of investment from their team, where they probably would have to either turn the game off or, it would just be another rework for the fourth time. And then on top of that, to rebuild the player base, which should be done through a huge advertising push. That's very expensive to reach this audience. And it's not a super accessible game to begin with.
Yeah, you totally point. And Cam Winston said that the 6-month thing was because there's so much involvement in like updates and trying to keep content going. Like it's like there's a lot of work that Epic have to do to keep Paragon going. Like just like general maintenance, even when they're not fixing stuff and updating and doing balance patches and new heroes, there's a lot of work that's needed to keep the system going. New bugs develop, and at the same time, like just so much effort was going in, things were slowing down. We sat down and we looked at all the major things they had to fix, like big problems like the map. Like they changed the 2v1 thing and no one liked it and it was still awkward. And like if they wanted to fix that and redo the map again, I genuinely think that if they sat down and they were going the pace they were going and they still had development resources coming into that, it would easily, and I say this, easily taken a year to get Paragon back to the point where it was release ready, competitive, systems were in, stuff was balanced, like everything was in place, like all the new cards, everything was fixed and balanced and all that. Easily a year for really realistically for Epic to get the game back on track.
And that's with it being live with an expensive replay server and all the different locations running and still getting support from teams. So it was a nightmare to make that decision, I bet.
Exactly, and we haven't even touched on how fucking terrible those voice lines were.
Yeah, I don't even want to touch on that.
Why didn't Epic release the voice lines? Like, okay, terrible. Okay, so we're in January now, so we've had this leak, we've had all these refunds. I think at that point it was an easy decision for Paragon to be cancelled. I know a lot of people were really upset at the decision, and I know that we've seen a lot of posts of the sub and other places where people are just like, talking about the grief curve and going through changes about why Epic, why couldn't you have kept the game and couldn't you have made it offline and all this. And genuinely, in terms of the future of Paragon, I think at that point it was a very easy decision from a business perspective for Epic. I think it, like Fortnite's making going to be making $300 million a month. $300 million a month. There's a chance that if Fortnite continues to grow for the next 2 years, it's going to be making more money than Amazon as an entire company and business, just from one video game. So I think it was easy from a decision point of view. I think, all the problems that Epic had up until that point, they're a business ultimately. And I just, dwindling player base, everyone was unhappy. I know a number of people who were getting refunds who still wanted to play the game, but they were like, I just can't trust Epic are going to fix it, and I'm going to take my money back while I can get the refund. I know streamers and people who played Paragon for a living were like, I've invested all my time in this for the last 2 years. People like Selfin. It was like when Selfin watched the video of the "We're closing down Paragon" post, he was literally reading his P45 or pink slip if you're over the pond. Saying, you're losing your job, no more job for Selfin. He was reading that message online, like, and that, and I've seen since Selfin, he's not streaming the same numbers, he's not enjoying the game as much as his livelihood went at that point. It was a big thing, but from an Epic perspective, from like the game wasn't, people have very rose-tinted goggles of how good Paragon was, but it was a very unhealthy, sick game at the end.
Yeah, and having that leak come on top of it really just catalyzed the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it sped up the decision. It forced some hands. It made people question things much quicker. Like, I don't know, like in a different world and different timeline, maybe that leak didn't happen, and Epic actually went, look, we're going to take 6 months. There's going to be no updates. There's going to be no heroes. We're going to go into maintenance mode. And we're going to get some new developers in. And we're going to take our time. Blah blah blah. Maybe it could have happened without a leak, but I think that the decision that Epic made was probably the same one that was going to happen. All that leak did was just speed up.
And if you really think about it, if it took 6 months to get it ready and then another 6 months to actually pull it live with like a full competitive scene and get the community and the player base numbers back to where it was pre-September, I think MOBAs are kind of on their last leg already. So by the time that happened, like it never really realistically would have taken off to be the next League of Legends or Dota 2 or even a tier 2 High Heroes of the Storm behind it, in my opinion.
I agree. I think Epic shit the bed years ago. Like, I think that, with all that, and I know we kind of picked out some unique things that a lot of the other people who were kind of looking at Paragon and stuff didn't look at. And we looked at different things and took more of an objective look at Paragon itself instead of, going with the fucking Fortnite killed it. Like, for God's sake, man, just get over it. But
I think Thanos killed Paragon.
Definitely. Half of all video games disappeared, and Paragon Paragon was a Black Panther of the video game world.
Oh, dude, rip! I haven't even seen Infinity War.
So I think, like, with all that added together, Paragon was going to die. I don't think Fortnite did it any favors, but at the same time, I think if you entirely base your opinion on the closing of Paragon as a Fortnite killed it, you're just not taking in all the additional facts and information.
And, well, that was pretty much everything we wanted to cover in this discussion. Thank you all for listening to Red and Ruba talk about the Death of Paragon.